So Wizard101 recently had another design live stream where they talked about shadow pack. Now, of course, I've already made a video talking about shadow packs, and from what my understanding is, I was basically correct in that video to a certain point. So go watch that video if you're trying to understand shadow pack. So this will be like a continuation of that. But they did talk about another spell that's getting changed, and that is Rusalka. Now, I know a lot of people were wondering why are they only showing changes for Storm, and the main thing is the Storm got the biggest changes, I guess you can see, damage wise. So it would be more of a difference on the card versus if you were to just like look at Myth or something. But I think next time they do stream and they do want to showcase another spell, I think that they should pick something else, pick one of the spirit schools, and other people can see what their other schools look like. Showing Storm, I get it, major damage difference, but for the other players I feel like it's not as fair. But that's what they should do next time they stream, or do some sort of teaser with the fusions or like the shadow pack system. Definitely show other schools, or do a poll system in the Discord. I think either or option works. So currently this is what Rusalka looks like in game, right? You have the base spell that does 1395 and it'll give you a random blade after that. And then you have Path B, which does a hit and basically gives you a frenzy without the without the negative of somebody doing 30% more damage on you. So of course, if I use Rusalka on like a death, it will still have to do all this storm damage and everything. I'm still going to use storm mastery or storm pips, and it will give me a 40% death aura instead. That's what that chromatic symbol means. I always have to explain that when it comes to chromatic stuff because not everyone knows. Also, you can always right click the card if you don't understand the writing and just hover over the icons, and it basically tells you what each icon means. So now this whole path, top path and bottom path, are completely changed to a certain extent. Path A will be still what it is, but path B is basically gone. Also, there is a huge damage nerf, but we'll explain more about that when we start talking about that. But first, I'm probably going to do some Fight Fest in the background because I do want to get to wave 4. I'm being genuine. If you guys have not, definitely do Fight Fest. We only have 9 days left, and I think there's a lot of people who still want to achieve that goal. I'm surprised it didn't make it all the way here. I mean, hey, I've basically been doing this almost every day, but maybe I missed some days. It's very possible, just because I took a break in between because to record videos. But make sure you're spamming joins. Even if you've done your 2 for the day, you can keep doing join team and it counts towards the progress bar. So we'll do a little bit about with this while we're talking about all these changes. If you guys have made it this far into the video, just wanted to remind you guys that 75% of you guys that watch me on a daily basis are not subscribed. So do me a huge favor and subscribe. We're on that grind to hit 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. All right, now let's get back into the rest of the video. So when it comes to Rusalka, the standard path, which is path A, I'm gonna call it the damage path, call it the PvE path, like the not confusing advanced combat path. So what it now does is, I'm not too sure if this is maxed here, but we can't really tell because the fact is they didn't show spellment paths at all on the live stream. They just shown us 2 different spells. So I'm assuming we'll just have to wait. Probably path like tier 2, I assume. Anyways, there's a Rusalka that they showed for the path A, which is 675 damage, as well as it lost its shad, because now what they're doing is they're removing shads off the shadow spells. So when they're removing the shad, basically it also removes a lot of the damage on that spell too, which is, I mean, hey, it is what it is. If you guys saw the previous shadow pack video, that video explains. It's still going to give you the random % blade, so that isn't changed. Just the damage is going to be like nerfed quite a lot on it, as well as it's going to remove that shad. So you can still use Rusalka now. Well, basically you can use Rusalka now in like casual play if you don't want to rely on that RNG shad. So hey, just putting that out there. But then you also have the path B now. So this is the new path B. So no longer that 40% outgoing aura that gives damage. Now what it does is it does 645 storm damage, as well as now it gambits 3 negative charms, and in return you get plus 55 chromatic blades. Very interesting to see. Obviously it's up to 3 gambits, so if you only gambit 1, you're only going to get 1 blade. So if you gambit 2 negative charms, you'll get 2 blades. If you gambit 3, you'll get 3 blades. Very straightforward. Interesting path to see. It does give me like Sirens and Stormlord vibes, but I mean, hey, I mean, that's what Storm is. You're gonna get blades. You're gonna get a lot of blades, and they're chromatic, so you can use this on other schools, which is very nice to see. So if you use this on a death for some reason, and you do have storm stats, you do have storm pips or storm mastery, you don't have to have those. It's just, I'm giving an example. And you end up using it and you gambit some negative charms, let's just say some weaknesses on the enemy, and in return you'll get 55 blades for your own school. So since we're using death as an example, we'll get 355 death blades. Pretty straightforward when it comes to explanations. And then we also have the fusing. So when you combine Rusalka with a shadow pact, we don't know what shadow pact. Now I feel like this was also a flaw on the stream. They didn't say what's going to be fused with Rusalka, because the pact on Rusalka that was shown is negative charms. And the one that was shown the other day with glow bugs was Nova, and Nova was doing dots on self. So kind of confusing in that regard. I don't know. We'll have to learn a little bit more. I really feel like they should have showed what spell or anything. I even rewatched the stream to see if they actually mentioned it, but I didn't hear any mention of what spell is going to be used for the fusion Rusalka, for the shadow one. What it does now is it does almost 2000 storm damage. Now 2000 storm damage is pretty crazy. Obviously it's 1945, but I'm saying 2000 because I'm basically rounding up at that point. And then as well as you do get a storm blade that might give you either 15%, 45%, or a 60%. Very interesting to see when it comes to that. The pact on this card, it's negative charms on the enemy. So every time there's a negative charm on the enemy, that's where the shadow pact comes in play, and it will remove it, and it will make it so you don't have to take a toll. Basically it'll be HP, or it will remove a negative charm off the enemy. Now I assume it's the enemy that you targeted. Now I don't think it's going to be in multi scenarios. Like if you have 4 mobs and you decide to use this and you have a pact on that enemy, I don't think it's on any of the mobs. I think it's specifically on the person that you did use Rusalka on. Also, shout out to all the people that I keep meeting in Fight Fest. Love you guys. Still though, regardless of what it is, it's still 2000, and this is a huge buff to Rusalka. But at the same time, this is continuing on with the meme of Rusalka having a million different changes. At this point, I think it is the card that has one of the most, if not the highest amount of changes in the game, which is funny because the meme just lives on at this point. Now obviously this fusion is only specifically with the one that's path A. Now if we did the path B with whatever the shadow pact is going to be, whether it be Nova or something else that they show us later down the line, that fusion is now going to be 1190. So path B with the shadow fusion, which is the shadow pact system, is going to be 1190, and then it will proceed to give you 3 chromatic 60% blades, basically faint blades at this point. We'll still have to see how good this is in advanced combat. Like I said, as in my previous shadow pack video, I don't know how often I'm going to be using these, just because, for example, that specific one that I just mentioned with the faint blades, I don't know how much I'm going to be using that in advanced content. PvP players are probably like happy, but for me, I'm not too sure when it comes to, like, I don't know, a certain fight or example. We'll have to see, really. And at the same time, is the shadow pact is negative charms, so you have to make sure you have negative charms on the enemy. If not, you're gonna start consuming your own HP, which is it's something that you have to deal with the shadow packs. You trade power for HP, or you give it something. You feed its power, essentially. Still though, I mean, we'll also have to see with the Rusalka and like all the other spells. Now I didn't think that we would be getting Rusalka. I thought it was only the Darkmoor spells. Now when I mean Darkmoor, I mean like Malice there, that type of those spells, Graveyard and stuff. So I was hoping that it was just gonna be that, but I didn't think that they would go further beyond, and they're also doing Polaris spells. So if you think about it, this update probably has a lot of changes. I thought it was just going to be, new world, new spells, and then the whole mechanic of the whole shadow stuff. Another thing they did mention is they might change the cards, how they look like visually, kind of how like if you were to fuse a card in the game with like something, the card looks altered a little bit. So they'll probably do something with the shads where, like, if you fuse the Nova or whatever the pact is, whatever card it is, right, and you fuse it with the Rusalka, the card might slightly look altered, which, hey, that's good aesthetic wise. My overall thoughts though with Rusalka is that 2k is a lot. It is a lot of damage. Now I feel like that'll be good for certain boss fights, but the argument still stands. Where am I getting all this shad rating from? And they did say they might look into it, and I'm hoping that they do, because the thing is with all these shadow packs and this whole shadow chain stuff, good concept, don't get me wrong, but it still begs the question, where's my shad rating? I can rock full piece shad gear, and I can have a person run just one piece of gear that gives me shad rating. Sometimes that person that's just rocking one little piece gets a shad like round 2. But the guy that's rocking like almost every single piece with triangle jewels just doesn't get a shad till like round 4. It's like I'm playing RNG at that point. Which, it's not like it's a storm thing. I feel like this is like a storm mechanic at that point. I'm rolling a dice, which is like Storm's thing. They like rolling dices. But Shadow as a whole should not be rolling a dice. I need a concrete system that shows me how I can gain shad rating at an efficient rate, and what I can do to achieve a higher rating so I can get this consecutive shad rating chance. It being RNG is not something I like at all, especially if you're trying to use this for casual PvE. Of course, advanced combat, maybe, skew the percentages, whatever, I get that. But for casual play, if, all the people that want to see this, they're not going to want to use it because they're not getting shad, even if they're forced to rock multiple shad builds that give them so many shad pieces. So that's my like one take with this. But still, that 2k, like, you know, even if you set it up, that 2000 Rusalka is a lot. Don't get me wrong, it is a lot. And that does more than a 10 pip Storm Owl. Like, what? Storm Owl max tier does 1590. Like, if you were to hit the highest end, this Rusalka is doing 2k. Like, what? Now, even if we were to compare it to the Scion, yes, technically, you know, Scion is better. Yes, because you have to hit this conditional, though. But if if you achieve this conditional, yeah, Scion is always going to be better for bosses when it comes to, like, that type of stuff. But the Rusalka is just doing 2k by itself, so it's even doing better than base Scion. But if you have the Gambit on Scion, of course, the Gambit's going to make it do more damage. So that's my final take when it comes to Rusalka. And they didn't really talk about anything else on the stream. They did answer a bunch of questions, and I even had some questions about, you know, some challenge mode stuff. You know, I got some vague answers, but that's usually how it's going to be, right? Stormbringer and Roberto will be working on some challenge modes, and I'm scared. I'm scared for Darkmoor challenge modes, so we'll have to see about that. I hate it when these mobs just randomly, like, they're roaming and they don't make it into the fight. I've always hated that in, like, certain dungeons. I wish that all the mobs would just, like, stand still, so I can just pull you all at once and not, like, have one delay join and then I have to wait a whole nother round. Also, I saw someone complaining about this spell in the chat during the stream. They said the animation is too long or something, or like they were complaining about how the -40 weakness should go on the 7 pip. I know this is a video about shadow packs, but I want to put that out there. I don't think that they should move it to the 7 pip, because that means the 7 pip is going to do less damage, and the whole point was to make all the 7 pips like kind of around the same thing, so all the 7 pips do damage. They don't have like a conditional unless it's path B. So I mean, I'm pretty sure they know this too, but don't put the weakness on Nova, because it's going to do less damage in return. So regarding other spell changes, there was a note that was mentioned by Stormbringer, or Dom, as you guys might know him, and he did talk about some potential ramps. Now, he did mention this specifically for PvP players, and I was like, okay, wait, some of these are actually good changes for PvE as well, like PvE Advanced Combat. And I felt like my input was worth mentioning, and even to just talk about it on the channel. So one of the changes is going to happen to Contagion. Now, these are specifically death spells. I didn't see any other mention of other spells or whatever, but Contagion is getting changed. Now, what Contagion currently does in game right now, it's 3 pips, and it clears a hot for 2 negative charms, which are specifically infections that are -65. It's being changed to 2 pips now, and it removes a singular hot, as always. And it's still giving those 2 infections, but now they're 50%. Now, I still like the pip cost. All these are going to be pip changes to 2, just by the way, putting that out there. And it's good. It's good for those advanced combat scenarios where I always have to wait for that other pip. Now I can reliably only need 2 pips. Very good change regardless for all those certain challenge mode fights. I've requested this before, and it's nice to finally see that happen, to make some of those challenge modes even slightly a bit easier to get, you know, not rely on those 3 pips now if they're all 2 pips. So still a change regardless, and I think this is just him talking about how this is what they're expecting, or this is what they're, you know, based upon player feedback is what they're going with. Of course, we'll have to see what the spells look like in game on test realm. And then the next spell he did mention is Jin's Larceny. Now, Jin's Larceny, what it does currently in game is, of course, it's 3 pips. It's being now changed to 2 pips. Is it clears 3 positive charms on the enemy, and in return, you get 3 Death Blades, I believe. So now what it does is they're still going to be removing the 3 positive charms on the enemy, but in return now is you get 2 25% blades. Now, I believe these are universal blades. They didn't mention anything of like, hey, this is a death blade. Now, it literally just says 2 25% blades. So, hey, this can see some really good viability on other schools, in my opinion. And it's a simple, hey, I'm removing 3 of your blades. In return, I get 2 blades. Sure, they're 25%, but I'm getting a blade. It's definitely better than what it originally was. The next spell that's also getting changed or worth mentioning is Oni's Morbidity. Or that's how you say it. I mean, hey, some of you guys criticizing me on the way I talk, and I don't know how to say it, but I'm saying it as Oni's Morbidity. I'm sorry. But originally, it's 3 pips, now being changed to 2. And what it currently does in game, it removes a hot for 2 -50% shields, which is good. I think that was a good spell. I've even used it in challenge mode, so I thought it was good, but it's just the pip cost that was very annoying. But now what it's doing is it's still going to remove that hot, but now you get 2 25% shields. So slight nerf in the shields, but hey, at least the pip cost is 2 now. So I still think that's worth value, and you know, and that's still worth mentioning in my opinion. And then the last spell that I mentioned regarding ramps is Petrifaction. Petrifaction I have used quite often in advanced combat. And this is not like me just joking around, like genuinely I've used it a lot in advanced combat. So now it's going from 3 pips to 2 pips. And what it currently does in game is it removes 3 positive charms for universal weaknesses on the enemy, which are 10% though. But now the changes is it's removing 2 instead of 3. So now it's removing 2 positive charms on the enemy, and in return it's putting 2 25% weaknesses. Now it's still universal, judging by like the way that Dom wrote it. My assumption is still just going to be like a regular old weakness, so it's just putting 2 regular weaknesses on the enemy now instead of that 10% universal weakness. Now it's becoming 25. So hey, it's worth mentioning regardless. At least we're seeing some more, I guess, teasers, I guess you can say indirectly, about some spells that are getting changed, some shadow pack stuff, and some new stuff that's coming to Wiz realistically. Still though, I think my only, I guess, gripe about the stream was I wish they just showed complete path A, complete path B, as well as they showed what spell is actually going to be fusing with Rusalka, because that was kind of the main thing I literally just didn't hear anything about, because I think everyone's going with the assumption that, hey, you're probably just going to use Nova, and I don't want to make that assumption until they literally say, hey, you are going to fuse Nova with Rusalka to get this version. It's just kind of weird because the pact on the bottom of the card is negative charms, while Nova was completely different. So we'll have to see about that. See, here it is again. The mobs are joining late for no reason. Did this person just give me a death plate on a storm? I mean, hey, I'll take it, I guess. Other than that, that's it for this video when it comes to the shad changes, specifically for Rusalka, and then as well as some ramps that are getting changed. But hey, still worth mentioning. Obviously, these are a little bit more targeted towards the PvP folks, but I do want to say, hey, I do use some of these spells in advanced combat when it comes to using Petrifaction as well as Contagion. So glad to see those spells changed when it comes to at least pip cost. So hey, it's still a plus in my opinion. And we got the mobs to join later again. You guys let me know your thoughts and opinions about Rusalka, and of course the ramps getting changed in Wizard101. I like to see your guys' feedback, and I'm pretty sure other people would like to see your guys' feedback. Definitely have some conversations about it down below. Also, I want to appreciate everyone that does subscribe and, you know, likes the videos. It does help out with the channel quite a lot. So definitely keep doing that. As well as commenting, it does help out with the algorithm, as I always mention. But that is it for me. Those are my opinions on the spells and, you know, the ramps, and of course, as well as the stream entirely. So I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys. Also, keep doing your fight fest. I need to get to wave 4 ASAP. We need more people like Brian at the end of the day.